Hi, and welcome back to Tea of the Peopleist. This is a hybrid game and talk show where I play through games and tell you some real stories about North Korea, human rights, and development, all based on research I've done in this field. And I did say before that I had this one on the shelf, so I'm going to serve it up today. It's a talk on Hanawon, which is the reintegration center, or it's like a halfway house for North Koreans who arrive in South Korea as refugees or escapees. There's quite a bit to talk about. It's a very important part of what North Koreans go through as they take a full step into the world outside of North Korea, not as just temporary students or temporary workers or diplomats or irregular residents in countries like China. It's about their step into the rest of the world as world citizens, South Korean citizens. I realize now this is kind of a big topic in South Korea, Hanawon. When I first heard about it, I thought it was just a really nice idea, but I've heard some feedback, I've done some reading, and it's just not really cut and dry. There's a lot of criticism about the integration center that I want to get into, so this could be a bit of a dense talk. So here's the game plan. First, I'll explain to you what the reintegration process looks like. Then I'm going to get into what sort of place Hanawon is. We're going to discuss some testimonials from North Koreans and try to give some perspective from the South Korean public. And I don't know, I guess we'll try to balance out praise and criticism to see what we can say about it and kind of get some questions and start building a roadmap about what to do with Hanawon going forward. It's not going to be pretty. It's not all going to be pretty anyway, which is why this is part of the Hard Talks in Human Rights series. Because we're not just going to be talking about what refugees go through, we also want to talk about how their allies and advocates need to improve their business. Now, our game for today is another South Korean classic called Pangya. In short, it's an online golf game with tons of fan service, because why not? It actually shut down a few years ago, but some heroes went ahead and made a private server with all the padding and microtransactions cleared out. Ironically, even though this should be a way different game from Gunbound, it actually kind of plays similar. You aim, you account for angle and wind and slope, and you fire off, hoping you hit your target as close as possible, as quickly as possible. It's it's almost the same game, you know, golf, guns, whatever. I'm not a golfer in real life at all, but I did grow up with all kinds of like Mario sports games, and this kind of colorful sports game with action commands, it really reminds me of that kind of charm. Plus it's slow, it's relaxing, it's easy to play through while I give my talk. Honestly, I don't think I'll be playing this one too much before I get back to Magic Arena, but I'll keep it on tap for, you know, when I need what the doctor ordered. Just something light, a little fresh. Again, this is not a game I'm very good at. Actually, I have not played it for a long time, so I'm still kind of learning the ropes, but some people are just incredibly good at this game. I am not one of those people. I usually golf above par. Also, I'd like to point out that the tutorial on this game is kind of terrible. They tell you a bunch of stuff. They show it in a way that doesn't make sense because you haven't done it yourself. And then after showing you like 5 different things, it just kind of says, okay, now it's your turn, which is going to be irrelevant later. So let's check it out. Now, by the way, as we play through this, you might see some Japanese text here and there. So just to be clear, this is Pangya Reborn, which is the English translation combined with the final season of the Japanese one. Welcome to hell. All right, now, yeah, first things first, I'm gonna lay out the human rights spiral for North Korea. And I say spiral because it's kind of an ongoing process. It doesn't just like start and then stop. Now, obviously, people who are inside of North Korea are going through all kinds of human rights disasters. But what I want to get to is how it continues even after they escape, if they escape. So wow, that was unfortunate. All right. So I'll break it down into 3 steps. And first step is in North Korea itself. I'm not going to go into too much detail because this list is crazy long, but I'll put it to you this way. So a decade ago, the UN did an inquiry and they wrote an absolute Bible. I mean, more than 100 pages of just violations inside North Korea. Some of them were really basic things you can imagine already, like no real right to vote, no freedom of movement or work. It's too easy to go to jail, trials aren't fair. Some of them were much more wild than that. I mean, all kinds of violence and sexual violence that I really don't want to get to right now. I mean, people should know about it. I just don't want to filter out anyone right now. So I'll say if you want to hear the most gruesome stuff, look up the UNCOI, the Commission of Inquiry. Read the text yourself, or just have an AI bot summarize it for you. I mean, this should be easy. Will it be easy? And right on. And to be clear, there's a lot of reasons we know about this stuff in North Korea. There's various forms of analysis, medical records. Is that the, oh, that's the whole, okay. We have news articles, medical records, but the biggest source of information is testimonials. And again, it's up to you how much to believe it when people say what they've been through, but we see some big patterns across a lot of people, across a lot of years. That's our witness testimony. I mean, I'm literally in hell right now. So, okay, now that's step one. Step two is third countries, which I talked about earlier on in MTGs and refugees. So to remind you, that's especially China, but sometimes also Russia, Thailand, Mongolia, Vietnam, places where you see North Koreans either sent to work temporarily or where they end up if they escape across the border. Let's see if we can get it around. Give me just a second here. No. We get a lot, and I mean a ton of reports about forced labor, trafficking of women, domestic violence. When I say domestic violence, I mean against North Korean women who live with Chinese men in a sort of family arrangement. Basically, they can't get married because they're not actually supposed to be in China. But they live like they're married and they have kids together with these men. Not impossible. I just have to get this. Nail this just right. Let's see. Yeah, I want to talk about them more some other time, but in short, we've gotten a lot of testimonials, and we've even seen some official Chinese documents that verify human trafficking is happening. Now, did I just break the game or something? What? I think I broke it. I think I broke the game. I'm so sorry. Yeah, anyway, we've seen some official documents that verify human trafficking is happening. And the third thing, what I want to talk about more today. So the happy ending narrative is that when the South Korean government gets in contact with one of these North Koreans in Thailand or an embassy in China, something like that, they bring them home, quote unquote home, and make them South Korean citizens. Take them to the land of the free, all that. And it's kind of true. The South Korean government does make a lot of efforts to help get North Koreans to South Korea. But life is not perfect on this side. I've heard a lot of complaints. These people would definitely rather be in South Korea than North Korea. That's not the question. But it's still not quite that simple. Is it a slope problem here? I think it's a slope problem. Okay, so we're gonna drop that and see if we get there. they still have a lot of things they want to change when they're in South Korea. And some of them even want to go back home to North Korea because life here in South Korea is just not that easy for them. And, you know, maybe they miss their homes and their families. They miss familiar things. So I just want to be clear that it's not all unicorns and fairies here, right? Bogey. So what happens in South Korea that you can call a human rights violation? I mean, even for South Koreans, and for me as a non-Korean, there are plenty of human rights violations. Every country has violations. Let me make that clear. No one is perfect. For me, I deal with unequal law enforcement, language and ethnic discrimination, limited job access, but I'm not here to tell you about me. I do okay in my life, and I'm not advocating for myself here specifically. All right, what's the trick on this one? I mean, make it look like there's no trick, but I just gotta get it in 60, huh? Okay. For North Koreans, there's a lot of discrimination in South Korean society. There's a lot of disdain. Whoa. That's an eagle? That's a hole-in-one, right? There's a lot of disdain from South Koreans who just hate to deal with the unusual or the unknown. And some of them are just absolute jerks who start judging as soon as they hear a northern accent. But a big issue is in cultural differences. All in. I'll get more into certain specific human rights violations sprinkled throughout the rest of the talk, but I want to get into how things work as far as North Koreans getting into South Korea. It's a process. First of all, you have to get to South Korea. If you do it by crossing the DMZ, you'll probably get marched right to a military hospital because it's not an easy way to go there. If you go the long way, if you go around through China, you'll almost certainly arrive by plane, probably with a government escort. AP got a video of it, 2002. Look it up on YouTube. There's a Secret Service dude walking them into the airport in Incheon. Yeah, I just gotta get 20-ish. That might be a bit too much. Oh, there's a big slope there. It didn't tell me about the slope. All right, so you're North Korean, you are in South Korea. What's next? Do you just go home? No, you'll get some urgent health checks first, again, and then it's off to processing. So first you go through security interrogations. They keep changing the name of the security center, but also who cares? Everyone knows what it is. And you'll probably agree that this makes sense. I mean, most South Koreans are in favor of it. North Koreans I've talked to, they generally say, yeah, it makes sense. Any North Korean who shows up could potentially be a spy. That's pretty much common sense. According to the book I read, it was FSI's account of North Korean arrivals. It's a lot of drilling, like asking you the same question in different ways at different intervals, checking and double checking to see if you slip up. Really standard policing stuff. And it's supposed to take a minimum of a week, up to maybe a month. But I swear I've heard people say it takes them months, maybe like 3 months or so. I hear half a year in total combined with the Hanawon part that follows. And that's going to be another 3, right? So up here, I mean, there's a hard wind. Okay, let's try this first. No. And even if a lot of people agree with the idea of the process, even the North Koreans, the process itself is just not so clean. One of my friends, she has a YouTube channel. She's a hard critic. She talks about how North Koreans get treated like prisoners, even though they're supposed to be refugees. How all the women, they have to like put all their belongings out in front of the room and they have to get checked everywhere. They have to do body checks and and urine tests and all these things. And this is all really tough because I can't tell you where the line is supposed to be. How do you balance the basic demands of, trying to protect South Korea from any kind of infiltration while also acknowledging North Koreans as Korean citizens who should be served by the government? There's this impossible dilemma where you simply can't promise every North Korean that they will be treated as innocent until proven guilty when they arrive. 100% of arriving North Koreans get treated like they're at a police stop. Hey, do I smell meth in your vehicle? Why don't you step out and put your hands on the hood? So there's this understanding that they're absolutely having their human rights violated, but even the North Koreans in South Korea agree that it's kind of a necessary step for national security and general security. That's gonna be tough. I'll try to wing it. Pangya. The news always says they're reforming and all, Hanawon, but are they? Is it enough? I think the important thing for now is that the public keeps putting pressure on them to reform it and for them to not be hard on North Koreans. So you hear that, South Koreans? They're Koreans, same as you. They would have been born south of the DMZ if their grandparents didn't defect or get kidnapped. So just chew on that. All right. Man, I'm still gonna miss the, okay. I have no slope, right? I just have to hit it right in. Is that it? Is that gonna be it? Or am I gonna get, it said no slope. It said no slope, but there's a slope. This game's screwing with me. All right, so next question. What is Hanawon? You're in a week to 3 months in the NIS interrogations. Next stop, Hanawon. Here's the meat. Hanawon is kind of an informal name, semi-formal name. They have a more official name that's basically like the Reintegration Education Center, something to that effect. But it's better to call it Hanawon. They emphasize being an education center, but some critics call it a surveillance center. I am not able to disagree. I will say that whatever their end game is, they do in fact have an educational program, which I will get into soon. So let me take this shot. I know, hell doesn't seem so bad at the moment. Not a Pangya. In short, North Koreans are forced to live in this education center, sleep in the dorms, eat in the cafeteria, and take all kinds of orientation lessons for 3 months. They can't leave, they can't use phones, they have limited internet access. Testimonial from maybe a decade ago said that students had 1 night of computer access per week, but that's probably changed. Computers just aren't that expensive, and the center is not all that crowded. I mean, they must have more computers. There's a lot less North Koreans here these days, so they shouldn't have too much trouble with resources for everyone. There's like less than 100 that arrive every year, I guess, which means for 1 3-month cycle, that should be under 30 North Koreans, right? So what do they learn at Hanawon? Well, basically they learn what it means to be a South Korean and how to live in South Korea. They relearn history because apparently it's not taught so good under the Pyongyang system. They get all their basic education reviewed and brushed up. They learn a little English, I've heard, which is that's not really a good idea. I mean, English education is way different up in the north. And it's not like they'll get to watch American TV and movies or anything, much less write English words or learn their ABCs. A reminder that this is a 3-month program, right? And they have programs for adults, they have schools for kids. It looks like the slope is to the Or is it to the right or to the left? I think it's to the left. It's going to be bad. They divide people up here and there by age. They have daycare centers because a lot of women are showing up with their half Chinese kids, or, you know, sometimes just North Korean women with North Korean kids too, to be fair. There's a lot to cover, and they try to get all of it, but on average, most arrivals are teenagers up to young adults, maybe 40s at the oldest. There's all these lessons on practical skills for life here. There's stuff to catch up with life in the developed world. They get lectures on the competitiveness of South Korean society. They learn how to use computers. They learn how to use transportation systems, things like digital payment cards, bank accounts, ATMs. Okay, let me pause for a minute and say they are taught this stuff, but a lot of it is lectures, theory. It's not quite like they have all these terminals and things in the room and are taking turn tapping cards or anything like that. That's going to be important later. I'll get to that. Oh, I'm way too zoomed in. Oh, okay. So I need to get down here, right? I don't know if I hit it just right. No. You have to keep in mind some of these things might be obvious to some people, but make absolutely zero sense to others. Let's say you live near a big city in China for some years. You probably already know how tap cards and digital payment works, right? But if you just barely cross the river, like, you were just in and out because someone paid some people to get you out of North Korea, for instance, or if you cross the DMZ, none of this makes any sense. Should I have used a different putter? I feel like I should use a different putter. That's an issue. So you sit through all these classes, you learn about religion, civil society, human rights, all these people who you can contact. You do some cultural excursions, and then 3 months later, you get to go out and you get to live life. Sometime later, if you think you need to go back to Hanawon because you're not getting by well enough in South Korean society, you have the option of going to a Hana Center. These follow a similar format, but are privately operated, and you don't have to live there. I forget the exact number, but I want to say there are 7 of them. I don't know, will this work? Why not? I can experiment a little bit. There's no penalty for that. Let's see. I visited one of them. The people who work at the Hana Center, they're very pleasant. Their basic support program it's a few weeks long. The big draw is that your Hana Center will be near where you live, so you can just call in, show up whenever, like they're your ongoing support link, your therapist. Is this one not easier? I think this one's easier, right? I mean, it's just 10 yards. Famous last words. Oh. Well. Yeah, the Hana people, they're your therapist. They're kind of like your friend, I can say. They absolutely are there to help you, and they want to be there for that purpose. They don't have all the NIS clearance. They don't really have any power to police you. And that's really important for building trust with their center attendees. One of my coworkers says they're just there to help out old and disabled people, but I totally disagree with that. Basically, all North Koreans are facing some kind of psychological troubles, no matter how much or how little they're willing to admit it. And the Hana Center people, they're real licensed professionals who can help them discover what's holding them back in life, and they can help them discover what's holding them back in life and refer them to other professionals if it's necessary. They are social workers, and they do God's work. Kobe. Now, how do North Koreans generally feel about Hanawon? I've talked to some people, I've read some accounts, I did my research. My conclusion is that they're not big fans. They hate it. Okay, so there were some good words. The number one thing I heard in favor is that it's a chill place to stop, take a deep breath, and unwind for going into South Korean society. That's pretty cool, I think. If you just went through this big whirlwind of escaping, running from all kinds of police, some kind of stressful life, living sorta undercover in China or Vietnam, whatever. I think it could be pretty salt to take a few months to sit in an air-conditioned room, eat some kimchi and rice, just sleep, read for a few months. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's too long, but it's a nice bit of not having to worry about life, at least for the moment. It says there's no slope, but that doesn't seem quite right. This one has a natural slope. Okay, I think that's it. And I need to get just over. Is that it? Come on. The rest isn't really that good. Just overwhelmingly negative, if I'm being honest. I think the two most common complaints are about freedom and about wasted time. And I'm going to start from freedom. So imagine this, all right? You just left maybe the most repressive place on the planet. Maybe you escaped to China and police dragged you back to North Korea 4 times. Yeah, that's a real story. Chae Min-kyung, look her up. 4 times she was dragged back to North Korea. And each time they threw you in a prison, they interrogated you, they beat you. You spent the past month or year or decade trying to get to freedom. You show up in South Korea and they say, okay, now wait in this hospital. Fine, you get your health clearance. Then, okay, now come to the security center while we vet you. Okay, come on now. 3 months later, okay, now we need you to be in this education center. We have things to teach you. And then it's 3 months of this. Not angry. I'm not angry at you, golf game. You're a chill, relaxing golf game. The people are tired of being told what to do. I won't say life is always great in South Korea, but it's still pretty insulting to be a grown person, to have gone through all those things you've been through, all the security and the prisons and the papers, please, the violence and the shouting and the commands, and now you don't even get to walk to a 7-Eleven, not even with a guard on you. But yeah, they don't like it, the North Koreans. They want to be let out. They actually consider Hanawon to be a prison. All right, very relaxing game. Just kick it in. Just put it in, come on. Yeah, just kick it in. There you go. Nice. Then, okay, Hanawon, the time wasting. Again, 3 months. They just got done being grilled over and over. Are you a spy? Are you sure you're not a spy? How about an agent? Are you a spy-gent? And answering all these questions about what town they're from, what it's like there, and so on, all these things so that they have to keep their story together. You know, the security people watching they're looking for holes. And then they get to Hanawon, and here we go again. Some nice lady in a nice dress comes up to you, and so what town are you from? There's an argument here that it's not an education center, that it's a surveillance center. And that is why they're doing all this. But a lot of North Koreans feel like they're being watched and not educated or assisted. And that would be okay maybe if the education was good. This is another huge complaint, probably number 3. So you know how I mentioned the tutorial sucks on this game, Pangya? They make you sit and watch some instructions with broken English. Whoever wrote them was convinced that they made sense. And then after a bunch of demos that aren't really clear at all, they say, okay, now you do it. That's how the Hanawon attendees feel. Okay, that's a big split. Okay, I'm gonna try to put a spin on this. One person said, imagine taking a cooking class where you're not allowed to taste the food. It really pissed them off that they're right here in South Korea, but instead being told about South Korea instead of being allowed to go out and just live life in South Korea. A lot of the things they say just don't make sense because they lack the context. South Korea is very competitive. Yes, true, but what does that mean? You won't get it until you're here, like here. In North Korea, competition means bribe harder, and South Korea just isn't that simple. Let me give you another example of context. There isn't really a stable rule of law in North Korea. Contracts don't really mean what's on the paper. It's just a more primitive rule of power system. So if you decide some kind of arrangement is not to your favor, well, you can just renegotiate it whenever. Does that make sense? In South Korea, if you say you're on a contract that you're gonna pay $100, you pay $100, no less, and the courts will see to it. You know, you can't lie. If you have a work contract, you get paid what's on the contract. One North Korean tried to get around a contract by renegotiating, and she got sued because she didn't pay the full amount. Nothing in Hanawon prepared her for this fundamental rule of law that I imagine doesn't really exist in North Korea. It's obvious to me, probably to you, but it's just not to people who lack the context of a liberal society that have working courts and lawyers and things like that. So there are things that North Koreans should be getting taught at Hanawon, and they aren't. It's endless lectures, and they're getting nothing from it. I perfectly understand this complaint. I took 2 public classes in Korean language here in South Korea. One of them, the teacher said, put your vocabulary in a 3x3 bingo card and then practice with the person next to you. I don't remember getting a single conversation practice lesson in either of these classes. What I came to those lessons to do was to learn to speak Korean, and we never actually practiced speaking Korean, a cooking class with no ovens. I have to be careful here because there have been a lot of changes. Almost all of the word that I've read or heard has been from 10 years ago or earlier than that. Hanawon was opened, I think, 24 years ago. Things change quickly in South Korea, and there are probably some improvements. I don't have eyes on the ground, although I could probably reach out to some centers to get some more recent testimonials. I'll see if I can loop back around with an update later, but no promises on that. But there is one thing that I think has changed. I read about a girl who came as a teenager, and she and other teenagers were in their high school level class, and the teacher just hit them, slapped their legs once for every answer they got wrong on tests. They just lined them up in front. And apparently this was before South Korea criminalized school violence, so I think things are definitely better now. Honestly, I can't imagine anyone really getting away with it. I think any violence in Hanawon would be found unreported. The workers there would probably be too scared, to get caught by another South Korean or a North Korean. So I think the worst is over, but we still have some basic problems in the hull of the ship. Oh, there is no way. Okay. What I can do, I can get around. Can I get a Pangya? No. I don't think South Koreans are really paying full attention. What I want to say is the problem with Hanawon is the same problem I have with Korean classes. If you ask a South Korean, even a very progressive one, they're going to say the same thing. Korean classes are a great idea. Foreigners should all have to take them. So are they going to learn Korean? They need it in Korea, which completely ignores the issue at hand, which is that the classes we already pay for with our tax money don't teach us Korean that we can use in South Korea to live our lives. I got shouted at for speaking poor, slow Korean at a tax office because I had to go get my documents to renew my visa because I couldn't print out my documents from a machine because the machines don't work for tax-paying foreign citizens because they just don't. When did these classes ever prepare me for such a situation? Find me the tax office chapter of your textbook. You're not going to. Save you the time. I think I can go a little bit over. Let's try that. Almost a Pangya. South Koreans think North Koreans need Hanawon. Their logic is clear. North Koreans need to understand South Korean society, or else they're not going to be able to live harmoniously together with South Koreans in South Korea. That's not the point. Hanawon doesn't actually teach them to do that. Every North Korean says the same thing, that they actually learn how to live here by living here, by watching, by making mistakes with real practice in society. The South Korean education system does not incorporate that. I'm not 100% convinced of the harshest criticism that Hanawon is just a surveillance center. I definitely think it has that function, that the government wants to check one last time while it still has eyes on the North Koreans. They want to check that this person or that person is not a spy. I think it actually is an educational center. It just doesn't do it right. And I'm glad North Koreans are speaking out now because they are citizens and they do have the right to protest. And South Koreans definitely do hear them, just not enough. The public needs to listen more because there's definitely a large number of South Koreans, conservative and progressive, who think of North Koreans as just foreigners, and they think of foreigners as people who lie or who waste time or just don't really understand the context of South Korean society and complain about things that work perfectly fine for South Koreans. It's just way too easy for people to ignore things that are outside their periphery. And that's really why I'm here doing what I'm doing. So what should we do with Hanawon? I think even if I made the argument that it should be abolished, it wouldn't fly. Many North Koreans do want it removed entirely, but the public wants reintegration and they want surveillance. Let's focus on reform. Hana centers, they do a great job of listening to people's individual problems. Not Hanawon, but Hana centers, right? They provide psychological support and therapy and financial and legal aid. And maybe the Hana centers should have a greater role. Maybe they should be high-level consultants for Hanawon. And of course, there's criticism of Hana centers too, so let's not be too hasty, but I think we need to look at all the possible ways we can fix Hanawon up. Definitely, we want to bring North Koreans back in, the ones who have been here for more than 10 years and have a lot to say to new arrivals. Bring them into the Hana centers and to the Hanawon to help manage things, to help consult and help move the centers in the correct direction. Reintegration is not going anywhere, but we should really work on it. We can't get rid of it, but that doesn't mean we can't improve it. It really sucks how much North Koreans have to go through even when they get to the final leg of their escape. The developed world really, it needs to talk more about human rights, and we need to do it now. So I hope you can understand what I'm saying, and I hope you share the feeling. For the time being, keep on peopling, and thank you for listening.